Welcome back, everybody. Today's a little bit of an unconventional episode. I'm going to be teaching my 90-year-old grandma about Bitcoin. Nonny!
What's that?
We're going to film our YouTube video today.
Nonny. Ah.
I'm going to teach you about Bitcoin.
Oh, that's what it is.
So we'll just try to face each other like this, Nonny. If,
Like this.
yeah, you can lean back, get comfortable. All right, how's my hair look, Nonny?
Okay.
All right. Okay. All right, so we're just gonna pretend.
I'm not.
Yeah, we're just gonna. All right, Nonny. So
Have you turned it on already?
we're just gonna pretend it's off.
Well, I know, but you're gonna edit all.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna edit the whole thing, and also, I wanted to film a video trying to explain what Bitcoin is to you. So, when you hear the word Bitcoin, what is the first thing that pops into your head?
I think it's a trick. I thought there's who's ahead of that? Who's doing that? How did it get started? And maybe it's a trick of some sort, and to get people's money. I don't know. You know, I haven't looked into it, but I know you kids have. And I hope it's worth what you're saying, because I have a daughter that's getting into it because
That's because of me, by the way.
I know.
I convinced your daughter, my mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
She needs something for her old age because she doesn't have anything really much Social Security.
Mhm.
And if this
Bitcoin.
coin, it's an answer to her problem in the future. If she can just keep saving it, she might have something to fall back on when she gets in her
Yeah.
old age.
Okay. Yeah. So the easiest way I think I can explain it, because at the base level, I know you understand the internet, or at least how to use the internet. Like you've gotten online and
Yeah.
you get on Facebook, you send emails, things like that. Well, Bitcoin is money. So it's money that is native to the internet.
Native to it.
Native to the internet.
Native to it? Well, how did it get to be native to the internet?
Okay, maybe another way is to say it's money that uses the internet to be sent to people.
All right. Is AI involved in it?
No.
Okay.
So it's almost like, imagine like if you had an email where you can send somebody an email.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to send somebody an email?
A computer.
You need a computer, you need access to the internet,
Uh-huh.
and you need the other person's email address. And you can send an email to that person.
Right.
Okay. And now picture the same thing, but happening with money.
But I haven't seen a coin or a dollar bill.
No, but you also can't hold an email.
Oh, that's true.
You can't hold it.
Yeah.
It just exists
It's just there.
on the screen.
Yeah. Ah, awesome.
Okay, so so next thing, the internet it's kind of hard to explain if you really think about like what the internet is, right? But it's basically a worldwide system of computers talking to each other.
Wow.
That's pretty much what it is. You have servers that are allowing computers to talk to other computers, and pretty much what Bitcoin is. Listen, I'm going to blow your mind.
Okay.
Imagine you're balancing your checkbook. You remember balancing your checkbook?
I remember.
You said grocery store $50, church tithe $25. Okay. Imagine so that's called a ledger. It's a list of transactions. Imagine a long list of transactions and the record is being kept on the internet. So picture that checkbook balance and it being maintained online. That checkbook, that ledger, says how much Bitcoin each person has.
What does BIC mean?
Bit?
Bitcoin.
Well, that's just the name of the money.
Bit, B-I-T?
B-I-T. A bit it means like a piece of digital information.
Okay.
So have you heard of a gigabyte?
Yeah.
Like, hey, this iPod has 10 gigabytes of, well, a, a gigabyte is 1,000 megabytes. 1 megabyte is 1,000 kilobytes, and 1 kilobyte is 1,000 bytes. So a bit of information is like a one or a zero digitally.
See, that's a whole new generation for me because I never had to learn. I had to learn 10 to 25 cents was a quarter and stuff like that. Now then we're getting into gigabytes.
Terabytes, oh, petabyte, yeah. So that's pretty much just like how much information a hard drive can hold.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I
the more
understand that.
the more bits, the more songs, the more emails, the more, because all of that is data.
And so that's the same thing as with gigabytes.
Yeah, and that's just what they decided to call Bitcoin. That's just the name that they came up with.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the name of the money. So anyways, back to my analogy of the ledger, right?
Well, let me ask you, is this in Europe too?
It's all over the world.
Okay.
Anywhere there's internet,
Uh,
you can use Bitcoin.
so if I'm over in Italy and I want to get something from a store, I can use Bitcoin?
You might not be able to buy it from any store, but
Oh.
it's kind of like, think about gold. Gold is valuable, but you can't necessarily go to Walmart and buy something
Right.
with gold.
Okay.
You used to be able to when gold was money,
Yeah.
but gold isn't used as money anymore, at least in most parts of the world.
Yeah.
You can sell it for money, you can buy, like, trade it for money, you can trade money for gold, but money is not, or I mean, sorry, gold is not used as a medium of exchange, or it's not used as money.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin is sort of like gold in that sense, where
Oh.
not many places accept it as a form of payment, but it still holds value, kind of like gold has value.
Well, yeah, we lost the value of our money when we took gold and silver out.
So I was going to ask you about that. And we'll get back to Bitcoin in a second, but I think this is a good part of the conversation. Do you remember when President Nixon, took America off of the gold standard in
Yes.
1971?
Yes.
And what was your thought about that at the time?
I thought our money wasn't worth as much as it used to be when it wasn't backed by gold. But then, you just go on. I mean, they did it. And you have to spend the money without the gold in it. It felt not as secure. You don't have the gold backed money. And that was a big mistake, I think, to take the gold standard off and the silver standard off. We should have kept it. And of course, I'll get political and say we shouldn't have even had Social Security. People should save toward their old age and not depend on the government. But since we do, we do. And it is what it is. So
did you keep all your, so yeah, you mentioned silver. The coins are not made of silver, at least as much as they were. Did you have a lot of silver products, like silverware and fine china, or like,
no.
no?
Well, silverware maybe. Well, back then my mother sold silver tabling silver spoons and
Yeah, she sold them?
she sold it. Yeah.
For
I
how
forgot
much?
the company was. She would go from door to door selling sterling silvers.
Just her own things?
No, it was like I was in a company
Okay.
and she got so much, if she sold one. But back then, sterling silver was on the way out because it was so expensive compared to stainless steel. So people started not buying the sterling silver. If you had sterling silver, I guess you should keep it.
Yeah, you should have.
But we weren't political minded at all. We just sort of went with the flow. And if we'd have known then what we know now, but you're not ignorant. You're not, you know what's up. So you could you could kind of take advantage of that. We didn't care what was up as long as the government said it was okay. Well, we believed the government. You know, in a way, we did. When Nixon took out the gold standard, we didn't like that. Nobody liked that, and I don't really know why he did it.
Well, I think they did it because before you couldn't print money unless you had enough gold to match how much money you had.
Right.
I'm sorry, as much gold as you had. You had to have, there was a the amount of gold dictated how much money
Yeah.
you could print.
Yeah.
And they wanted to print more money, but if you're on the gold standard, you don't have as much gold, you're limited in how much money you can print.
That's true.
And so they got off the gold standard, and now they started printing more and more money, and it's not backed by anything.
Yes.
It's backed by the faith and credits of
Yeah.
the United States
Yeah.
government. And what can they do with more money? They can fund wars.
And that's what they did. That's what they do now. But I wish we hadn't done it. I wish it's like living above our means. We shouldn't have lived above our means. We could charge this and charge that. People are not smart when it comes to charging something. And they want something, so they just charge it. Well, back then, if you didn't have the money, you didn't have the thing, and people were better off, I think.
Let me ask you a question, and we'll circle back to Bitcoin, but I think this is an important. When you were starting a family, did you work?
No.
Did other wives of children,
I didn't know
moms?
anybody that worked except one lady.
What did the wives and moms do all day?
Drank coffee. No. Well, we took care of our kids.
Yeah, you took care of your kids. And was your husband's salary enough to provide?
Well, we made it enough. I mean, we couldn't go out and just charge anything. We just made it enough. We lived off of what he made. I took a job once, but it was a necessity. I had to get some money so we could move to another state. So I took a job, but I didn't keep it that long, because I still had kids in school. I couldn't ignore my kids and let them I had to take care of my kids and teach my own kids. Nobody was, and back then the teachers, they didn't try to take over your children like they do now. We had conferences and we talked about what we were doing with our kids, but they didn't try to suggest that we should be doing something radical or different with our kids something we wanted to do. So it's just terrible that the parents have lost their place and the kids, they're not the most important people anymore. I don't think. The school runs everything, and they're radical leftists mostly.
No, they are, Nonny. I completely agree. Boys competing in women's sports. There's just confusion everywhere. People are kind of lost. Your husband was able to, my grandfather was able to own a home, work one job, provide for 4 children with one spouse working. Is that true?
That's true.
And would you say that was true for most of your friends and
Yes.
other families you know?
Yes.
Yeah, because
most of the other families that I knew, nobody really worked except at home and took care of their kids. My friends were all homemakers, they call us. But they made homemakers into a sort of a dirty word. Because if you were a homemaker, that means you didn't have an education or something. You couldn't go out and work like important people. You had to stay home and take care of kids. Well, I think that's changing now. I think people are realizing they need both their parents, and one of them has to be home at all times with their kids. I was, and it wasn't no hardship at all. It was my pleasure to raise my own kids.
That's beautiful. I mean, today, if a woman wants to have a lot of children, stay home, secular culture makes fun of her for that. They
That's
say
right.
she's not living up to her full potential as a woman.
Right. They try to tell her that.
Yes.
And they try to downgrade being a housewife when that's the most important job there is. I mean, they to provide a home for your family.
And they make good food for me to eat.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
No, it's true.
But it's also kind of true.
Yeah.
My wife is, you know,
She's
she's a
getting
pretty
to
good.
be a really good cook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a blessed man. So imagine this. Talking about money, the degradation of society. I think it all started, at least a large part of it was contributed to in 1971. So there's a lot of charts. There's a website called What Happened in 1971.
Yeah.
And it shows you these charts about fatherlessness, abortion, two parents working, how much chicken compared to red meat people ate in 1971,
Yeah.
how much a house cost versus somebody's yearly wage, and everything just started to skyrocket in 1971.
Oh, really?
Yes. People today eat way more chicken than red meat than they did in 1971.
No, I do.
Yes. I mean, it's because chicken is so much cheaper and red meat
Yeah.
has gone up. There's a lot more divorce today than there
Yeah.
was in
Yeah.
1971. Two parents working is way higher today than it was in 1971. And it's because our money loses value over time.
Uh-huh.
Whereas before, because it was pegged to the gold, as I'm sure you lived through this, the value stayed the same for the most part. So people's money didn't lose value over time, forcing them to have to spend more of their money to make ends meet, you know?
Yeah.
Because
Well, making ends meet, you had to have somebody in the family that knew numbers and could make out a list of what you pay for certain things and not to go over that. I mean, we checked to see if we could afford something or not. And and there was no payments. A lot of people saved their money for things. I remember when credit cards came out. Woohoo!
no, so yeah, you didn't have to have the money. You could just spend, swipe. Did you have a credit card?
Yeah, I had a credit
Was it
card,
fun?
gas card, and all kinds of cards, and I was free as a bird with my cards. Uh, I had a patient husband. He wanted to bring home the bacon, and
Bring home
that's
the
what.
bacon.
Yeah, and we had a pretty good life. We weren't starving or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
We had what we needed
Yeah.
and what we needed, not what we wanted, but I mean, I tried to improvise sometimes and get something that uh, it was his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this big picture of a forest in the fall. And I wanted that picture to go over my couch, but it was his birthday. But I bought the picture for his birthday.
But you wanted it?
Yeah, I'm the one that wanted it. I said, I bought you a picture. And he said, what? I said, I bought you a picture to go over the couch, and it's going to remind you of Oklahoma. Because it's, got woods in it and stuff. I thought I could convince him, that I did that just for him. But
Yeah.
he saw through me.
That sounds like when husbands buy their wives power tools for Christmas.
Yeah.
That's what you did.
Yeah, that's what I did.
That's funny.
And I wanted him to dress up a lot. So I bought him a shoe shine kit.
Oh.
He didn't appreciate that either.
So you would spend your money a little bit you would indulge every now and then, but it wasn't like you could.
No, it was most of what we
Yeah.
needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's circle back to Bitcoin because I think people need to understand its real importance. So imagine this. Okay, if I handed you $10, there's only two parties involved in that system, right? Me and you. I'm the first party, you're the second party. There's no third party. I don't have to hand the cash to somebody to then gives it to you. There's no bank involved, there's no company involved. Well, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer, like two-party system. I could send you Bitcoin over the internet, like through the blockchain, or it's recorded on the blockchain, which I'll explain what that is.
Yeah.
But it's, even though it's digital, there's nobody else involved in the transaction. If I send you $100 worth of Bitcoin, it goes straight from me to you, even if you were in China.
So nobody takes anything out of
Nope.
it.
There's a small fee that you pay that goes to the miners, which I'll explain what those are maybe in a different episode. But it's digital, but it's still only between two people.
Well, is it easy to get hold of if you need, what if you need some money?
Well, that is the money.
So I go down,
But if you
I want to buy a car.
so you need dollars.
Oh, I need dollars?
Yes.
Oh.
I mean now, unless you bought a car from somebody who was willing to sell it to you in Bitcoin, but most, like a dealership probably wouldn't sell you.
Oh.
But the thing is that Bitcoin doesn't involve banks. It doesn't involve companies. It's just between the people who are using it.
So one of the banks offers or advantages to being in a bank is their backup of their money. If something happens to you, then they have a insurance, federal insurance, or
Yes.
something that
$250,000.
yeah. And Bitcoin don't have that.
No, because you are a more sovereign individual with Bitcoin. So let me say something about the bank. So you mentioned the FDIC $250,000 insurance, which says that banks can cover their clients up to $250,000. But it's like, where do you think they're going to get that money? They're going to print it out of thin air.
Well, they do that. They do.
They're going to give you a money that's not backed by anything. There's a limited amount of Bitcoin. So you couldn't just print new Bitcoin and replace the Bitcoin you lost, because it's scarce. There's a limited amount of it. Even though it's digital, it's 21 million Bitcoin. There will never be more than 21 million.
Is that right?
21 million.
Huh. Well, now what does that sound like? I mean, if you reached your 21 million, that's it.
That's it.
Well, I think I'd be satisfied with it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's divisible. So you know how, like, at $1, there's 100 pennies in a dollar. Well, one Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million parts.
Goodness.
Yes. So it's highly divisible. So it's not like you have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy a half a Bitcoin, a quarter of a Bitcoin. You could buy 100 millionth of a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That's like the pennies of Bitcoin. They call them Satoshis.
Huh.
Yes.
So this is a whole new thing. My goodness. I mean, somebody has to really think about that. How that works.
Yep, and it's easy. I could grab my phone, I could open up my wallet, and I could send you Bitcoin without anybody's permission. Nobody needs to approve. No bank needs to check. No bank says, hey, we don't like this. You know, if you tried to send money to Nigeria or some parts of like North Korea or something, not that you would, but do you think the bank would let you do that? If you said, hey, I want to send all my money to a friend, they would probably tell you no. And it's your money. You should be able to do what you want with it.
Well, yeah.
But Bitcoin is truly your money, because no institution, no
They can't get it.
No.
They can't get it from you.
No.
Like they can't rob you.
It's like them trying to dig up gold you have buried in your backyard. It's like they're not gonna get it. I mean, there's ways, if you didn't properly secure the Bitcoin, that it could be seized. But if you take care of it, there's no way for governments or bad actors to take it. You would have to give up some piece of important information.
Oh, well, what went through my mind was, hey, this is a holdup. Give me all your Bitcoins.
Yeah, and that's possible. So if somebody came up to you in the street and pointed a gun and said, "Send me all your Bitcoin," that is theoretically
send it.
You'd have to.
They can't just give it to you.
That's
So they
why
can't rob you like.
it's fuzzy.
Oh,
So that's why there's people who protect their Bitcoin in ways where like that's not possible,
oh.
where it would take more than just 5 seconds
So
to
what happens when you reach your limit? Do you still stay in the Bitcoin business?
What do you mean reached your limit?
Well, like you're 21 million or whatever.
Yeah.
You're done, aren't you?
Yeah, there will never be more than 21 million,
Uh-huh.
but once that's it, people just pass the 21 million amongst themselves.
Themselves.
Yeah, like you could run the economy on a limited amount.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because then you couldn't print more of it.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening now. It's like your money gets inflated
Uh-huh.
because the government is putting more money into the economy.
Yeah, and it's worth nothing.
And yes, so a dollar when you were a little girl could buy a lot more than you can buy with
Oh,
a dollar
yeah.
today.
Oh.
What could you buy for a dollar when you were 10 years old?
Well, when I was 10 years old, I wouldn't spend a dollar, but I'd have a nickel.
What could you get for a nickel?
I could get a candy bar for a nickel.
For a nickel.
Uh-huh. And I could get, of course, that's all I bought when I was 10 years old.
But you could that's saying something. How much how much did a meal at a restaurant cost?
Only $1.25.
$1.25.
Back when I was a little girl. Yeah, it wasn't like now. It wasn't like now. I mean, that's for poor people like us. If we were on a trip, we'd see this sign that'd say pig. It'd have a pig on it. That's what they first made hamburgers out of, was pigs.
Pigs?
Pig meat. Pig. Yeah. And
It is interesting that it's called ham burger.
ham
And ham comes from pigs.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So you could see this sign with a pig on it, and you knew they had.
That's funny.
The whole thing is just weird.
It's weird how our money loses value over time. Even I'm 30 some years old. I remember when like my first job, I worked at Carl's Jr. when I was senior in high school, and the job paid $8 an hour. And that was in Washington, which we have the highest minimum wage in the country. So that was pretty good at the time, but now it's $16. At McDonald's, they'll pay you $18 an hour.
When I worked at Safeway in California, when I had to have a job so we could have a place to rent when they got here, like my husband and kids. And I made $3 an hour.
$3 an hour.
In the meat department. Yeah. And they said they could only give me $3 an hour because I wasn't, I came from a little old town in Texas. And when I saw that store, that Safeway store, with all its butchers and all of that, I was just, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because all I had was a little iron, and held hand iron, and I wrapped the meat. I was a meat wrapper. And
you had a lot of jobs, Nonny.
No, I didn't. No, that was the main job that I ever had.
But
important one.
Okay, but I remember you drove a bus too.
Oh, I drove a bus, yeah. Yeah.
You got some funny stories about that one.
Oh my God, what I did.
So I like you said it earlier, things are changing and our money is changing. People are waking up to the fact that their money is losing value at a faster and faster rate. Did you know that 80% of the dollars in existence were created in the last 5 years?
No.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, they're just printing and printing.
They're printing and printing and printing, and that devalues the rest of our money, and prices go up.
Yeah.
That's why mom and dad both have to work. People are having less kids. But if we had a money that didn't lose its value, that actually was an honest representation of the work that you do.
So how do you get paid?
With Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Well, I don't get paid in Bitcoin, but I take the money that I make at work and I buy Bitcoin.
So I wondered who got paid in Bitcoin.
Well, so that's some people who work for Bitcoin companies.
Oh.
Like maybe they could get paid in Bitcoin, but most 99% of people don't get paid at their job in Bitcoin,
Okay.
but they take their money and they purchase Bitcoin in an open market.
So how do you buy groceries?
So you don't really buy groceries with Bitcoin yet, at least not on any meaningful way. You would probably just use your dollars, but you can use Bitcoin as a way to save your money.
Okay.
So, like, I buy a little bit of Bitcoin every week and I set it aside
Yeah.
and I'm saving it. Instead of putting that money in a savings account where it's just going to melt like an ice cube, I'm buying Bitcoin and I let the Bitcoin sit there, and the amount stays the same, but it's worth, like, the amount that it's worth in dollars goes up,
Oh, the amount that is worth in dollars
goes up
goes.
because it's like gold. Gold goes up in value.
Yeah.
Bitcoin goes up in value.
Oh, I see.
As the government prints more money,
Oh,
Bitcoin goes up in value.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, that's good.
because the dollar is getting worth less, it takes more dollars
Yeah.
to buy a Bitcoin.
Oh,
It's kind of like how it costs more money to buy a candy bar today than it did when you were a kid.
yeah.
It's not because the bar has changed, it's because the money is worth less, and it takes more money to buy the same amount of things.
Yeah, it does.
So if you have your savings in dollars, that is just becoming
It's
worth.
just gonna go down.
Yes, but if you put it in an asset like Bitcoin, that is doesn't the value, like, nobody can inflate it, nobody can print more of it.
Oh,
It goes up in value as the dollar continues to go down. Um,
so you wouldn't have to put for weekly like you do too much of your paycheck into Bitcoin.
no, just whatever you would normally save, just try to buy Bitcoin with it. And I mean that's what I try to do, at least.
Yeah.
But it's cool because I can now send that Bitcoin anywhere I want. I don't need anybody's permission, and I can trust that the Bitcoin is going to get where it goes.
Golly, how can you do that? They'd let
Because
you know we got it, we got it.
no, but like I can verify, and we'll save this for another episode.
Verify. It's like whenever you order a package, you can verify.
Yeah, like you can kind of do that. You can check the transaction and make sure it
Yeah.
went through, and but I don't. I mean, mainly you just save the Bitcoin, and then maybe hopefully in the future you'll be able to afford something really nice.
Yeah.
The lifestyle you want to live. You can pass it down to your kids, and
Oh, yeah, that's good.
yep, you can buy a dream house maybe.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one more thing. So, um, this is kind of not really Bitcoin related, but more history. What do you remember about World War II?
I remember going to school and the little boys would draw airplanes letting bombs down. And you, um, and we talked about the war. That's when Nixon.
No, that would have been FDR, Roosevelt.
Well, he was, yeah, but he died.
And after right after the war, I think, right? In
Maybe,
1945.
maybe. But we were political little kids. I was in the third grade, and we were marching around the school saying, "We want Nixon, we want Nixon, we want Nixon with his head cut off." I was in the third grade for that.
Wow.
I mean, people talk.
But Nixon wasn't he was the president in 1971. He was people.
Well, who did we want with their head cut off?
He,
We loved Roosevelt.
yeah.
Everybody did. We didn't realize he was a Democrat.
Yeah. But he also, I mean, he did some things that today, looking back, were not that great.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sure did. So, yeah, we would.
But you remember the culture, you remember
Yeah,
people talking about.
we would go down the alleys and get coffee jars. They were in jars then, and milk jars were too, but mostly coffee jars. And we got some money for it. So we'd fill our wagon full of coffee jars and then take them down, and they'd give us money for it.
And what would you do with the money?
Well, I went and bought candy bars.
But
Yeah.
but did that relate to the war somehow?
Because of the glass.
Okay.
the glass was.
They needed the glass?
They needed the glass.
Okay.
Yeah. So we would collect the.
I wonder what they
glass.
used the glass for.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. They needed rubber tires.
Yes.
And there was no balloons or anything like that because of the rubber.
Oh.
All the rubber. That's when plastic started coming out more.
Mm.
This I never saw a balloon until I was in the second grade or third. Wait, more than that. I was in the fourth or fifth grade before I ever saw a balloon or ever had bubble gum. And they said, "Oh, we got bubble gum." And some kids had some bubble gum and they gave me one. And I was so thrilled to get that bubble gum. And then it was like, is this all this is?
Yeah.
You know, it was hard to chew. And I thought, well, this is nothing. But
well, I mean, that's just funny that's people look for. You wouldn't even think looking forward to bubble gum coming out.
well, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't even know what it was till somebody told me.
Yeah.
And baby rubber pants. They quit that and had started having plastic pants. You know, diapers.
Diapers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It was the things that we.
What do you think is seeing how kids grow up today versus the world you grew up in? Do you see similarities or what's like the biggest difference?
Well, just watching your kids, I see similarities when we grew up. But just watching kids nowadays, all they want to do is
be on an iPad or something.
Yeah, and they are more, I think, dissatisfied. It seems like they don't have an imagination. They have to depend on their games or something like that to stir up their imagination that they don't have. And I feel sorry for the kids nowadays. We could make a game out of anything, and of course, sometimes it wasn't very good, and we did, but we played all day long outside.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I don't see kids running around my neighborhood.
uh-uh.
They're not outside in the streets. They're not running around getting dirty in the mud, like riding bikes. I remember riding my bike. I think I caught the kind of the tail end of the typical outdoor childhood.
We had skates.
Yeah.
And bikes, and it was just all the time something. I wrote in my book about how it was when I was a kid, and if we couldn't find anything else to do, we'd make up something. They don't think I've never heard so many boards. Oh, I'm bored. I'm bored. Well, we were never bored.
No, yeah, you guys were outside in the sun and
driving out tarantulas.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Nonny, this was fun. We're gonna have to do it again.
Yeah.
I love you, Nonny. Thanks for letting me
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
All right, everybody. If you enjoyed this, make sure that you hit like, subscribe to the channel, and we will hopefully do another one, Nonny. Okay. Because we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, back in the old days.
Back in the old days.
Right now I'm into my Indian ancestors.
Okay.
And that's something we could talk about.
Yeah, we could talk about that a lot. Yeah. All right. Until next time.